Good morning again, and welcome everyone to the 11th COVID-19 Insights Series webinar, an audience with Roger Dow continuing to navigate the road to recovery. As the title suggests, today we welcome back a very special guest, Roger Dow, President and CEO of US Travel Association, for a conversation with David Morrow, VP Global Marketing at ADARA. As with all our COVID-19 Insight series, we'll be beginning our webinar with Carolyn Corda, Chief Marketing Officer at ADARA, who will be sharing the latest data and trends from the ADARA Traveler Trends Tracker. For those of you joining us today for the first time, Carolyn Corda is an industry leader in customer data and predictive intelligence. As the CMO of ADARA, she is responsible for aligning the brand with the company's expanding mission and growth goals. Prior to ADARA, she was managing director at Accenture, where she led the applied intelligence practice for the travel sector. Before that role, Carolyn was a senior executive at Epsilon with responsibility for developing and launching new data solutions. With that, Carolyn, I hand it over to you to begin our webinar for today.
Thank you, Niharika, and welcome all. We'll start with a few notes on our COVID Resource Center, then we'll dive into our latest trends. First, a reminder, all the slides that you're seeing will be sent out after the webinar. Now, for those who aren't familiar with ADARA, you might wonder where the data I'm presenting today comes from. We have over 270 consumer brands that share their data with us, including some you'll likely recognize in the travel sector, United, Marriott, and Singapore Airlines, as well as some from other verticals such as Century 21 and Berkshire Hathaway. As a result, we have a lot of data. We typically see over 14 billion searches a year and almost 1 billion air and hotel bookings. We're able to dive deep on transaction behavior as most of our 1 billion profiles have on average 30 data points per profile. We've made a lot of our trend data available on our website. You'll see the URL here so you can access the data yourself. We do update it daily, so check back often for the latest. The insights you're seeing today have been developed by ADARA's brilliant analytics team. Of course, you're welcome to reach out to them if you're interested in custom reports and insights. As a special highlight for this, our 20th webinar, you can dial in tomorrow afternoon to talk with ADARA's data science and analytics experts. We'll have Milan Patel, Director of Field Data Science, along with Piyush Shrivastava, Director Analytic Products, both on tap to answer your questions. You're welcome to call into this free-form discussion. For example, you might want a deeper explanation of one of the charts I present today, or you might want to better understand our assumptions. Or perhaps you have a specific question about what data we might have to help you with your business need. We'll be sending out the link with the slides, so you don't need to capture the code now. But you might want to note that it's scheduled for 1 to 2 Pacific tomorrow. For those in the East, that's 4 to 5. I hope you'll take advantage of Milan and Piyush's insights and expertise. I'll be starting with macro trends. As we go through the slides, I encourage you to think about the findings on 2 levels. 1, what are the implications for your business today? And 2, how do the findings change your view of our overall pace of recovery? For the last slide, we'll share ADARA's scorecard for how consumers in general are tracking toward the new normal. Now, back in May, airlines were on a solid recovery track. More recently, as we look at booking volumes indexed to the start of the year, we see that the rebound in U.S. flight bookings has stalled out. If you compare the 2 pairs of columns on the far right of the chart, you'll see they look very similar. Remember, the 0 is at the top of the chart, and all the figures that you see are negative on a year-over-year basis. So the taller the column is, the more negative it is. The table on the right shows the percentage change in each period. During the early uptrend, flight bookings, and that was 1 May to 30 June, flight bookings were up 8% for business and 18% for leisure trips. The current period, which runs July 1st through the 3rd of August, is flat for business and tracking down 4%, a negative 4% for leisure. Not a positive sign. Now, U.S. hotels are improving as demand continues to build. Again, 0 is at the top of the chart. If you focus on the 2 pairs of columns on the far right, you see they're getting slightly shorter. That shows improvement. The table on the right provides exact percentage shift, with business bookings improving 7%, while leisure bookings are improving 11%. They're in the lowest row when we compare July 1st to 3rd August, compared to the prior period, the 1st of May through the 30th of June. This table here of top leisure destinations are ranked by booking volume with the year-over-year change in parentheses. It tracks along with what we've been seeing throughout the summer. Now, there's one exception, and that's Norfolk Portsmouth as a destination, and that covers the beaches of Virginia. This is the first time we've seen it pop up as a top destination. You can see it also posts a small positive increase over the volume of bookings. This underscores the importance of drive markets. Much of what's fueling the popularity of these Virginia beaches is its proximity to large population centers. Roughly 80 million people, about a quarter of the US population, live within an 8-hour drive. Today, we're debuting new data on the length of stay by destination. It's important insight and will help marketers better understand the types of vacations people are taking, allowing for better personalization of your offers and your messaging. Here's the first table with trip length for air bookings. It ranks each destination by booking volume, and so it's in order, and you'll see the year-over-year change in parentheses. Not surprisingly, a destination like Las Vegas, you see that there in green font, is popular for shorter stays. It ranks number 1 for stays under 3 days. It's ranked number 3 for stays ranging between 3 and 7 days. Las Vegas, though, entirely drops out when the stay extends beyond 7 days. There are only a few destinations that appear across all the trip durations. Miami and Denver, which I've highlighted in aqua here, stand out. You see them ranked number 3 and 4 in the shortest trip durations, and then balancing between first and second place for the longer trip durations. What's also interesting is in the last column for the longest trip duration of more than 7 days. What caught our attention is the year-over-year change. Denver posts one of the better performances. Now, still negative, but not as negative as flights overall on average. Honolulu is not as negative when you compare it to other destinations in the same trip duration column. On average, there's a general improvement in the year-over-year trend as the trip duration gets longer, suggesting more consumer appetite for longer vacations compared to last year. Now let's turn our attention to hotel bookings. As we look at the longer hotel stays, the destinations revolve around beaches, mountains, and major theme parks. You can see the prevalence of secondary smaller destinations such as Norfolk, Myrtle Beach, and Panama City in the 3 to 7 day range for hotel stays. You'll also note that all three have significant year-over-year gains. Panama City, win surprise, they reached 174% gain on a year-over-year basis. Looking at the last column, hotel stays greater than 7 days, we also see a few destinations in aquafont with year-over-year gains. Honolulu, over 30%. Orlando, a 15% increase. Miami posting a 12% gain, and Denver showing almost a 30% improvement in these longer stays compared to last year. We're going to see Orlando and Denver pop up again in another slide in just a couple minutes, so keep them in mind as we go forward. Next, we'll be analyzing booking behavior by advanced booking window. Up till now, we've been exploring the volume of bookings based on the date of the transaction. These transactions are all for trips in the future. So over the next few slides, we'll see how booking windows have been changing over time and which destinations are most popular for those last-minute bookings, 0 to 15 days. These tables summarize booking patterns from earlier in the year, January 1st to the 15th of March, which is labeled the pre-COVID period, and comparing them to the current period, which is July 1st through August 3rd. There's a significant shift towards shorter booking horizons for air, and it's even more pronounced for hotels. The trends are here in two tables. Table on the left is for leisure air bookings. The top two rows show that bookings less than 31 days have risen by 17%, while bookings for flights more than 60 days out have dropped by 15%. For hotels, it's a very spontaneous bookings, less than 16 days in the 0 to 15 day horizon in the future that are up 15%, while the bookings for trips more than 30 days out are down by the same amount, 15%. This trend toward greater spontaneity means marketers need to be agile and proactive in reaching these travelers early in their decision process. Last-minute bookings, 0 to 15 days, are typical for destinations like Las Vegas. It's less typical for destinations like Orlando that require more planning. On this chart, we have the top destinations for air on the left and for hotels on the right, for trips booked for travel taking place within 15 days. I've highlighted Las Vegas in purple. You can see that it's popular for last-minute trips. It's also interesting to note that it's posted a positive year-over-year gain for hotels. It's small, but it's there. It's 0.2%. The only other destination that's positive in that 0 to 15-day booking window is Norfolk Portsmouth. You may remember that I encouraged you to think about Denver and Orlando. They were two of the more popular long-stay destinations. It turns out they're also popular for last-minute trips. That's unusual, since common wisdom holds that longer trips require more planning, longer advance periods. That assumption just isn't holding true these days. The last key trend to focus on is how the distance people are traveling for vacations has shifted. A little over a month ago, we analyzed hotel bookings for May and June, and we bucketed them based on the distance between the booker's home city and the hotel destination. You can see here on the next slide. Pink is for drive distance hotels, 6 hours or less away. Green is for medium distance, 6 to 10 hours away. Then people might either be flying or driving. And purple is for long distance, more than 10 hours away, where people are most likely flying to the destination. We chose these three cities since they exemplified different mixes. Los Angeles is primarily pink. The people that live there are booking hotels that are within driving distance, such as San Diego and Santa Barbara. By contrast, Houston is about 50% pink in the pie chart. That's the drive market, but it has a substantial portion of purple, which are hotels that require a flight. Finally, on the far right, we have San Francisco, which is predominantly purple. Residents there, back in May and June, were booking hotels for places like New York, Boston, and Honolulu. Definitely not drive destinations. Those were flight destinations. That was back in May and June. How about more recently? We've added a bottom row of pie charts corresponding to each of the cities. You can see there was not much change in where people in LA are going for vacations, the bookings that took place in July and the early August compared to May and June. For Houston, short trips increased by about 25%, and vacations requiring a flight declined by the same amount. The most dramatic change is for San Francisco, where the drive locations increased almost 6%, erasing all the medium distance trips, and drastically reducing the proportion of destinations requiring a flight. This is a significant and recent shift, likely driven by changes in quarantine and travel restrictions, particularly to places like Honolulu. It shows how sensitive demand can be to those factors. To help sum up the trends we just shared and to give you an overall sense of consumer behavior, we've created a scorecard. It's a way of tracking where we are on this path to new normal. Going row by row, we're rating the volume of bookings as neutral. We've got it rated as negative, neutral, positive, and that's neutral, given that it's flat for air, modest for hotels. As for the business leisure mix, that's rated negative, since business bookings have yet to pick up. That hotel bookings continue to run ahead is another negative indicator. You really want to see those balanced. The longer length of stay is a positive, signifying economic resilience. People have the funds to stay longer. The lack of bookings for dates further in the future, by now we should be thinking pick up for Thanksgiving and year-end holidays, chalks up another negative, along with the recent shift towards drive distance hotels. Now, a couple of caveats. This is only addressing the points I just raised, are only addressing consumer demand, the willingness to travel. We're not addressing the price in the equation. It's clear that deals are driving some of this demand. Also, it's clear that industry is still struggling to adapt to lower demand levels as layoffs and other seismic shifts continue to take place. Focusing just on what we see about consumer willingness to travel then, I'd rate this current situation as somewhat negative. How does that compare with your assessment? Consider what consumer behaviors are your markers for recovery, and how are you tracking against your assumptions on the pace of recovery?